But if this works, I think I'm going to stay with the Zoom.
Nice.
Cool. So, shall we get started?
Let us get started.
Welcome to Week Didn't Start, a show where we recap the week's news using the greatest poetic form of all time. We said we were going to do this in 2019 at the end of it, and we're going to fucking keep doing it. My name is Jerzy. I'm joined by Sam. Hey, Sam. How are you?
Hey, Jerzy. I am, I feel like the phrase of the time is all things considered or considering the circumstances,
Yeah,
as the amendment. Yeah. So considering the circumstances, I'm doing okay.
It's good to see you remotely via technology.
I know this is our first time, even though this is mandatory. It's also very satisfying to have figured out a way of recording remotely.
Yeah, I'm stoked by it as well. So should we just dive into it? Like, I think,
Sure.
It's the week of March 23rd to 29th,
Yep.
2020. We kind of all know what's going on. And what the fuck are we doing? Like, this is so crazy. It's a little bit different than it was when it started, but we're going to keep soldiering on.
Yeah. I'm glad we decided to keep doing this.
Me too. It's good to have some structure. It's good to have, let's just dive into our three things that we do.
Remind me what they are always.
Yeah. So it's, what was it like for you this week? And then we talk about one thing in the news from the week that we want to highlight, and then one thing from the original song that we want to highlight. If you don't know the concept of the show yet, you'll figure it out. But there's basically this famous song that lists a lot of things in history, and we recontextualize it for every week in the year of 2020. So we're doing 51 or 52 of these for this year.
Let's see.
Number one is, how was it for you this week? Which is a loaded question, I guess.
Yeah. Well, working on so things that were interesting this week for me was pulling the news stories. Obviously there's a lot surrounding coronavirus, and it became like a lot of what went into the song this week for me was kind of corona adjacent or interesting news affected by the virus, which at the beginning I was like, oh, but that's just more reporting on the virus. But it's just interesting. It's kind of like experiencing everything as a fallout of the times we're living in. So it made for really interesting both news sourcing and writing, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I felt kind of similarly. Just the experience of going through the news, digging up everything, was so much different. It's been getting tougher and tougher to go through kind of the things we discovered, our smart, precise Googling of the news tab and all that. It still requires a lot of digging to find something that isn't just the latest stats in a country as of that day, or which company is shutting down or which company is donating or giving masks, or what the numbers are or what the strain is. There are just so many of those stories that aren't really stories. They're kind of just check-ins as best we can do. On what's going on in all the different places. So it was hard to get to kind of discrete news items, I found.
Yeah. And I texted you about this earlier, but this, the idea of making choices between cuts, like what not to include in the song, it was almost as if, and I'm just thinking of this analogy now, but the way in which a Coen Brothers movie tends to end with some event that puts everything in the previous however many minutes of movie kind of in perspective, it just shrinks it and makes you feel like, do we care about the right things, or were we caring about the right things all along? And that is what this event, this mass world event and time we're living in, has done to me and to my experience of the news, is that when I see something that feels insignificant in a way where including it in this project feels wrong, even if it's a break from the news. You know what I mean? It suddenly took on a different significance.
It's the UFO at the end of The Man Who Wasn't There. It's the storm at the end of A Serious Man. I'm citing examples from the two least popular Coen Brothers.
No, the one from A Serious Man is the one I remember best.
Yeah, I love that movie. So, did you find any you were looking to different news sources?
Oh, that's interesting. Not definitively. I think I was still trying to use the same ones. I still was pulling mostly from same websites, Twitter. Yeah. What about you?
I found myself going a little bit more toward tech culture. I used Mashable a lot more this week.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's about what's happening online and what companies are doing online. So that's where all of our lives are. And it just felt more germane. And also it was a place to find like a little bit lighter fare, because Mashable, their whole thing is like there'll be really serious news about internet business, and then it's like sort of like your former employer BuzzFeed, where there'll be kind of legit-ish, news, and then just a listicle or a meme.
Yeah.
So it was nice to find like some lighter fare, or to check in on like what broke through the cultural zeitgeist when so many things are streaming and online and on Twitter and remote, etc. And I liked doing this. When I started the exercise this week, I thought, okay, I'm not enjoying this right now. Like, it's just so much to look at all this news. But rather than the vague blob of stress surrounding the pandemic and the escalation and the government response to it here and abroad, and the deaths and the confirmed cases, all that stuff, it was nice to have a more clarified picture, I found, rather than just this feeling of this thing that's happening and we're all disconnected. So I went on a journey overlooking through the news from pretty down to a little bit more, still down, but felt like I had more awareness of it and more connectedness, to the moment.
Yeah. I don't have that feeling per se, but I will add that I was listening to the radio this morning, and one of the things that was kind of explored, it was the On the Media segment. So it was like an analysis of the way that media coverage is affecting our daily lives. And it talked really interestingly about how a lot of what's getting shared is getting mistaken for epidemiology or virology, and it's not. And sometimes that misinformation is coming from well-meaning doctors, and they're saying like, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm thinking, but there really is no vetting process. And even some of the studies about early possible vaccines and testing are being leaked onto these, I forget what they called it, but these like pre-servers or something where they're getting disseminated. So there's the way in which what's funny, I have to say before, and I do think this is relevant, is we have been living in a time of like quote unquote alternative facts where the press has really been the number one source. Like we felt like the press is under attack. This is our number one source for truth. And now it's not that everyone's just watching Fox News and that's why we're getting alternative facts. It's that everybody in their rush to keep the public informed, to be a part of the conversation, is skipping over a lot of basic rules about what how to deal with and inform the public during a pandemic. And I think that's just something that helped me feel a little better, even though I don't feel more aware of what's happening just because I read more articles about this. But I do feel comforted knowing that even though we're living in a time of saturated information, very little of it is actually information, if that makes sense.
Totally. I think we touched on this a little bit after the death of Kobe Bryant, which felt like that happened 10 years ago now, but that was a couple weeks ago. But the way that as facts were coming in and as reports were coming in, different outlets were tweeting and posting and sharing and sending push notifications to devices. And some of them were irresponsible. I think some journalists got fired as a result of some of their reporting on that. Wow. And it reminds me of other times like the Boston bombing hunt for the Boston bomber after the marathon, when there was a lot of information being passed around that was inaccurate or incomplete. And I mean, I hadn't thought of it until you just mentioned, but there's a little bit of that's the energy now constantly. Yeah. So that's going on too.
All right. So that's question one.
A comedy podcast. I don't know.
Well, you're the editor, so you can choose what not to
just
include.
Cut it all out. So welcome to Week Didn't Start. How you doing? So, okay. Question two. Oh yeah. So, we did 3 questions, but now we just kind of talk about that. And then we talk about, anything about the song stick out to you this week?
No, I mean, my relationship to the songwriting and the allegiance to the cadence and meter is kind of just a sine curve. Like I occasionally have different feelings about it, but I've just accepted that right now anyway, the project feels more like we've established a rhythm in how we approach this. And so it feels less important to me to nail down exactly how I feel about the song each week, knowing that has changed so much. I continue to want to like nail the Joe DiMaggio, Marilyn Monroe, like double the double meaning of that, the relationship meaning. I continue to feel like having the similar rhyme scheme is satisfying. And this week, you will hear in two of my verses, or maybe one of my verses, I referenced, we had a really fabulous reoccurrence of something big in the song. And there was another line that I just opted to switch one word or add one word in the verse to establish a moment. And we can talk about it, I guess, after we do it, but you'll see where it is.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know one of the things you're talking about, but not the other. Yeah, I think we've done, in spite of all the other things, given the circumstances, GTC, the adherence to the song, like we're still doing this thing by reiterating these parody interpretations of the song lyrics. We're not performing the song, just to be clear. We are just looking at the lyrical structure.
Don't sue us.
Piano Man, don't come for us, Piano Man. You can't even, what are you going to do? Leave your apartment? No way. You're going to drive out from the Hamptons? Yeah, no.
Court date, please. Yeah.
But he's, listening to stuff at home, so maybe he'll hear us. So that's still progressing. I think this version this week, as our listeners will hear, is the most, it's a really nice balance between like honoring the original rhyme scheme and cadence and taking liberties.
Let's hope so.
I think it's a particularly good one. Okay, so speaking of the song and the lyrics, do you have a highlight from this week's news that you want to dig into a little further?
Sure. I will confess to the fact that my highlight is also the verse I was most proud of, and I was excited to explore why it was happening and then also brag about the fact that I managed to write it. So my news highlight this week is in verse 3, which is representative of Wednesday. So due to social distancing, sex toy sales are actually skyrocketing.
Yeah.
And so there's this website, Adam and Eve, that's like the number one sex toy sales. And they reported a 30% increase in the sales of toys. So obviously people are, getting horny. And in the verse, the way I phrased it was social distance turn-ons. And the reason I'm very excited about that is because it's not only the facet of people getting turned on, but that now there are these machines that they are turning on to engage in this. So
humans and machines are getting turned on.
Yes,
together.
That's called the kinkularity. No, that was a terrible joke. It was so
no,
stupid.
I disagree. I think that was good.
So that's my piece of news from this week.
So, as in case you anyone was guessing, Sam and I both live alone, so we're quarantined alone.
No one to edit our jokes.
One of my highlights is horny too, but it's from the original song. My highlight from this week is not as horny, and it's actually something that didn't end up in my verse, and I was devastated that it didn't end up in the verse because I had put it into the Monday. We were noticing there's a lot of overlap in terms of like when things were reported, because reporting and journalism is a mess. But then I saw that you had it in Tuesday, which was my day, and I was very excited about the fossil worm that was discovered in Australia.
Oh, yeah.
The prehistoric ancestor of humans and really all animals that have like a front and a back and sides. But this worm that scuttles about and moves in one direction, which designates that it has a front, which I think means that it's bipedal. And also, bipedal is 2 feet, right? Anyway, it has a front and a back. And it's the first known fossil of a creature with a front and a back. And it's this weird looking little worm thing. It was discovered in Australia. And the name of it, did you catch the name of it when you saw the article?
Fossil worm. Nope.
So I dropped it into our shared Google Doc. But the name of this fossil worm is Icaria wariuta. I just think that's a great name. It's named after the spot in Australia where it was found, the landmarks near where it was found. But it's an antecedent of human beings and a bunch of other creatures, and they found it this week in Australia. What about from history, from the original song?
Oh yeah, so I wanted to expand on The King and I, which was a musical by Rodgers and Hammerstein that I believe premiered in 1954, was it? Or 1956? One of the two, on Broadway. And it was actually the history of how this was made. And it's the story of King Mongkut of Siam and the English governess who came to look after his kids, and how he actually helped like modernize Thailand. But the story of how it came about was that there was like a theatrical attorney who had this client who was aging out like Hollywood starlet and wanted to have a role designed specifically for her. So she called Rodgers and Hammerstein and said, "You're making this musical. You're making The King and I based on this book." And originally they couldn't see how to monetize it, but ended up like being inspired by the movie when they saw it because it was already out. And I've heard the musical. It's very good.
I love that, Sam. I love The King and I. I've been listening to it on repeat. It's one of like 5 musicals in my life that I know like every word, every song. And it's like super, because I watched the old movie with Yul Brynner.
Yes. So Yul Brynner, I believe, was chosen to take on the Broadway role as well.
Yeah, I think that's true. I love it, love it, love it. So I never knew that though, that it was basically packaged by the actor who did it on Broadway, who played Anna.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. Cool. Also very horny for its time, because they have a romance, and they dance close, right? There's this whole "Shall we dance?" one of the big scenes. The king says to Anna, he's like, "Well, that's not how you dance in America, is it? You dance like this." And he pulls her really close, and it's very horny for its day, for 1954.
Wow, horniness, a thing I have not known in the last 2 weeks, except, well, I just mean human connection with other people.
So speaking of horniness, my thing from the original song, I tried to find the most innocuous thing this week, and I picked Peyton Place. Do you know anything about Peyton Place?
It's a TV show, right?
It sounds like a TV show, and it did become a TV show.
Oh.
Like Melrose Place.
Yeah,
so
that's what I was thinking of, Melrose Place.
Yeah, which came out way after the song. Well, actually, not that long after the song, maybe like 4 or 5 years after the song. But Peyton Place was a TV show. Before that, it was a movie. But before that, it was a novel. I think it came out in 1959. Well, no, it was on the New York Times bestseller list for 59 weeks in a row. But it was basically a really horny book for its day. It was written by this woman named Grace Metalius. It sold 60,000 copies the first day. And it's just about young women who realize that they could be horny and take like some agency over their sexuality, which was very scandalous at the time. So it was banned and it was protested. And then it later became a movie starring Lana Turner, and then a TV show that did not do quite as well. But that's Peyton Place. It was this shocking cultural moment of unbridled, or still pretty much mostly bridled sexuality.
Pardon me, can you remind me what it was before a movie?
A book.
A book, okay.
Yeah. 59 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list.
Do I want to read it? Is it like 50 Shades of Grey level sexy?
It was at the time, but I think, a lot of things were seen as, caused riots and stuff, like Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, or the Rules of the Game.
It's very funny that
movie.
Like however many years later, maybe a century later, we watch something like is it Darren Aronofsky's Mother, where like a baby is eaten on screen and it causes mild uproar. You know what I mean?
Right,
it's like
spoiler alert for Mother, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, so well.
No, it's you've lost. If you haven't watched all the content that's out right now, what are you doing
screwed.
With your life?
Also, you can't listen to this news podcast where we,
Yeah, it's Mother's in the news. Okay, cool. So shall we get into the song?
Let's get into it.
Great. I feel like we took a little bit of time on the questions this week, but it's just because it's good to see you.
Yeah.
Chat with you. Hello.
Hello.
People that listen, I hope you like this, even if it is slightly dark or something this week. But yeah, we're having a good time. So you did Monday, Sam. Do you want to lead us through your Monday? Yes.
Here we go. Okay. It's a tongue twister week. Woody Allen, Tiger King, Burr Insider Trading, Satsi Kingdom, Denman Canyon, hacks on WHO. SETI pauses alien search, Miley Cyrus quits the church, Tom and Rita, Testacida, Medicare, old folks. Bum, 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 bum. Pro-life Texas, Mozambique, Alexa's racist when you speak, Rand Paul, electric cars, ample cops in grocery stores, marble racing, chloroquine, Boston trial vaccine, Alex Salmond, Alpha Conde, call for global ceasefire.
All right, Tuesday. Olympic Stalin, Lucy Bronze, Dr. Fauci face palm, Colorado, Maracana, low-res TikTok. D-Bongo, stay home, T. McNally, Cuomo's 2 trill bill deal, upward goes the stock. Jailbreak, Burger King, back to school at Liberty, Mozambique, LA Rams, US making Easter plans, Pornhub, Confest, when they see us, takeout chefs, Cohen case, freeze at Chase, please don't touch your fucking face.
All right, here we go on Wednesday. Prince Charles, Darius Swan, social distance turn-ons, BuzzFeed pay cuts paperbacks, Britney Spears for wealth tax, Gap masks, pipeline falls, no California baseball, Rikers Island stratified, survivors of thalidomide. Senate passes aid, planned contagion movie slaps again, Animal Crossing morgue space, virus found at NASA base, Rishi trial, foster pets, 10K tip at Skillets, ancient sword, Taiwan Strait, and what about the inmates?
Thursday. Prices gouged on Amazon. USA is number 1. Tara Reid. Biden. Locust swarms in South Sudan. Mardi Gras risk it. Why are they called Triscuits? Laughlin. Levinson. Bernie's worker bailout win. Stream aid. Kosovo. Pablo Escobar's hippos. 3 million unemployment claims. What else do I have to say?
Yeah.
Okay, now we have the last verse.
Okay.
Oh, we got 2 lines to write, don't we?
Oh, do we want to write them first? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. The way we did it this week is Sam took 3, I took 3, and we're going to collab right now to do the final 2.
Okay.
So stand by, and we're going to write those right now. Or maybe you'll hear us do it if we do it really fast.
Yeah. Well, here are, okay, so here's what we have left. I also added 2 things because Central Park or HQ Trivia is back.
Good.
I noticed. And then the other thing is that there's an emergency hospital being constructed in Central Park.
Oh, wow. I didn't see that. Was that today?
Oh, it's crazy. Yes, they're taking over the middle of Central Park and turning it into a field hospital.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So we could do a hospital in Central Park.
Great.
Okay. Anybody in the dark?
You used the Bezos thing, right? Where he sold his Amazon stock?
I didn't. Mm-mm.
Well, I guess he wasn't in the dark. He wasn't in the dark.
Bezos kept us in the dark. You know?
Bezos kept us in the dark. Yeah, exactly.
I hate that so much. That's why I was like, let's make it the last verse, because I was just like, fuck that man.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of Amazon-related stuff that's upsetting.
So then do you want to just do Trump ventilators? I can't take it anymore?
Yeah. Trump, what are ventilators for? I can't take it anymore?
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's good. That's great.
Did we just do that?
We did.
Oh, I think I'm just going to leave that in all like that.
What do you mean?
I won't cut out the part
great.
where we worked on it because we did it so quickly.
Here, I'm just putting it all together and removing because I know it stresses you out when I accidentally keep things in. I'm just moving it.
It doesn't stress me out. I can't read
I know.
through
Yeah. It's all good. Okay, here we go. There you go. Do you want to do the honors?
Do you want to do it?
It sounds like you want me to do it.
I'd like to hear more from you. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm sick of my own voice. I'm going insane.
You should have seen me do a TikTok dance earlier if you want to know who's going insane. Okay.
I did.
Thank you. Okay, here we go. Rollbacks in the Amazon, losing my tuition, condom dearth, screw the earth, chess, team, Google mirth, Boris Johnson, Cuomo, ire, New York City, subway fire, therapists on Instagram, Walmart selling shirts, not pants, streaming weddings online, James Dolan, John Prine, China's closed, who plays Joe, Zoom, Slack, Venmo, hospital in Central Park, Bezos kept us in the dark, what are ventilators for? I can't take it anymore.
Yeah, that was the week. I think that one turned out pretty good, Sam. Based on that, is there anything else you want to ask me about?
No, I mean, there's so much that when you go through, I'll candidly, like I see some things go by where I'm like, if I didn't pull it or I didn't see it come across my feed, I just don't know it. But this is a public service and we can go and look at things.
Yeah.
So I'll just recap and say the no California baseball. I realized that spring training day was supposed to start. And so it's like, that's the story, is that there's no California baseball. I
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was in the same verse as Survivors of Thalidomide.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Terrific.
So that was interesting. And then, I think, this is just a good project. And I like continuing to find those moments of like where our curiosity intersects with our ability to distill things, and we get to make something good.
Yeah. I do also want to, I agree. I'm glad we're doing this. Dear listeners, I can confirm, as everything in the world has, we considered not doing this anymore because of how shit the news is and what unprecedented time this is. But Sam, it's just so good to see you and like do this dorky thing and talk about committing to the bit. Like, we are committing to it. Also, this whole pandemic does have a lot of we didn't start the fire energy. There's a lot of we didn't start the fire energy. That's the song, by the way, that we're doing on Twitter and on TikTok and on Instagram. Like, there are other people that'll do maybe 3 or 4 lines at a time and put it out there. But this is the only place where you can get the complete song, a deep dive into the format, 52 weeks of the year. And it's going to end with a complete record of the entire year of 2020, if we make it to the end.
Let's try to make it to the end.
Yeah. So we're going to keep fucking doing this. This is the only place you can get this level of commitment to this dumb bit. I regretted it as soon as we agreed to do it, and also wouldn't change a thing. So until next Sunday, Sam, let's keep on keeping on.
Okay. I'll see you next week.
See you then.